Let's pick up where we left off. You've realised you feel undervalued. Perhaps you're still unsure why. Maybe you haven't had a performance review in years. Maybe praise just never seems to land on you. And you've started telling yourself a quiet story that you're not good enough. But here's the truth I need you to hear. You can't wait for someone else to tell you you matter. You have to start where you are. Not to justify your worth, but to remember it. Before we dive into the how, let's be honest about what's really happening here. When you feel undervalued at work, it doesn't just stay at work. It seeps into everything. You start second-guessing yourself in meetings. You hold back your ideas. You say yes to everything, hoping someone will finally notice how indispensable you are. And the cruel irony, the more you shrink yourself to try and fit in, the more invisible you become. I often observe this with the leaders I work with. They're so busy trying to be everything to everyone that they lose sight of their own strengths. They avoid the difficult conversations that could actually showcase their leadership abilities because they're afraid of being seen as too demanding or difficult. Does this sound familiar? Notice the voice in your head and where it comes from. That voice that whispers, "You should be doing more." They don't value you because you haven't earned it. You're just average. That voice? That's not the truth. That's your inner critic, and it often gets louder when we're already feeling small. But here's what most people don't realise. That inner critic isn't just random. It's often shaped by workplace cultures that don't know how to recognise good work, leaders who haven't been taught how to give feedback, and systems that reward the loudest voice rather than the most valuable contribution. Start here, tune in. What is it saying? What tone does it use? Would you speak to a team member like that? Because if you wouldn't speak to someone on your team that way, why are you speaking to yourself like that? This is where the reframing starts. From self-judgment to self-compassion. Say to yourself, it makes sense that I'm feeling this way. I've been working hard and I deserve recognition. Or, just because they haven't said it doesn't mean my contribution isn't valuable. We often assume that silence equals disapproval. It doesn't. However, our brains tend to fill in the blanks, often with the worst case scenario. Let's stop doing that. Self-compassion isn't soft leadership. It's smart leadership. It's what keeps you grounded when recognition is nowhere to be seen. And it's what gives you the emotional resilience to have those difficult conversations that actually showcase your value. According to the research, self-compassionate people are more motivated and resilient than people who constantly criticize themselves. Why? Because they feel safe enough to take risks, to speak up, to lead. Try this when you catch the inner critic kicking in. Pause. Place your hand on your heart or your chest. Say, I'm allowed to feel disappointed and I'm still doing valuable work. You don't need permission to treat yourself with kindness. You just need to practice. Want something even simpler? Try this. Set 2-3 reminders on your phone throughout the day. When they go off, pause and ask, what am I handling well right now? What leadership strength am I using in this moment? How am I making things better for my team, even if no one said thank you? Maybe it's staying calm under pressure, or listening carefully in a difficult meeting, or making a decision that others were avoiding. The more often you spot your leadership in action, the more you build self-trust. And self-trust? That's the foundation of confident leadership. If you're not getting feedback, start giving it to yourself. But not just any feedback. Strategic feedback that builds your confidence as a leader. Create a leadership wins file. Every week, write down one difficult situation you handled well, even if it felt awkward. One time you demonstrated a key leadership quality. One moment you stayed professional under pressure. One decision you made that benefited your team. This isn't about ego. This is about evidence. Evidence that you're already showing up as a leader, even when it doesn't feel like it. Because when you feel undervalued, it's easy to forget that leadership isn't just about the big visible moments. It's about making daily choices to stay professional, support your team, and make good decisions even when no one's watching. Here's what one of my clients discovered when she started doing this. She realised she'd been handling difficult conversations all along. She just hadn't been calling them that. The careful way she gave feedback to a struggling team member. The diplomatic way she managed a conflict between departments. The calm way she delivered disappointing news about budget cuts. She'd been leading. She just hadn't been giving herself credit for it. Sometimes we wait for people to notice, to offer, to invite. However, here's a secret. Most leaders are preoccupied with their own pressures and challenges. If you want more recognition, feedback, or clarity, you can ask. And it doesn't make you needy. It makes you strategic. Here's how to say it. I've been working to develop my leadership skills and would value a regular check-in to know how I'm progressing. I'd like to understand what success looks like in this role from your perspective. This isn't about fishing for compliments. It's about creating the feedback loop that every leader needs to grow. And if you're worried about seeming pushy, remember, asking for feedback is what confident leaders do. It demonstrates your commitment to improvement and results. It positions you as someone who cares about doing the job well, not just getting through it. This one might surprise you. When you feel unseen, it helps to make someone else visible. Start recognizing the good work around you. Appreciate a colleague publicly. Send a specific thank you message. Acknowledge someone's contribution in a team meeting. Why does this work? Because appreciation is contagious. And even if nothing comes back right away, you're demonstrating leadership. You're showing what good leadership looks like. You're creating the culture you want to work in. And people notice that. Here's what this might sound like. I wanted to highlight how well Sarah handled that client complaint yesterday. Her calm approach really turned the situation around. Thanks to Mark for staying late to help with the deadline. That kind of teamwork makes all the difference. You're not just making others feel valued. You're positioning yourself as someone who recognizes quality work and supports team success. That's leadership in action. Now you might be wondering, this is all well and good, but how does this help me with the difficult conversations I'm avoiding? Here's the connection. You can't have confident conversations from a place of feeling worthless. When you feel undervalued, every difficult conversation feels like a threat to your already shaky position. You avoid addressing performance issues because you're afraid of conflict. You don't speak up about problems because you worry about being seen as negative. But when you start building that internal sense of value, when you remember your strengths and recognize your contributions, something shifts. You realize that having difficult conversations isn't about being difficult. It's about being responsible. It's about caring enough about your team and your role to address issues before they become bigger problems. Think of it this way. The create safety step of the compass model. That starts with you feeling safe in your own value as a leader. The observe step. It's easier to stay objective when you're not questioning your right to be in the conversation. The present impact step. You can speak with conviction when you know you're speaking from a place of genuine care and responsibility. Building your internal worth isn't separate from developing your conversation skills. It's the foundation they're built on. You matter even if they don't say it. Let me end today by reminding you of something crucial. The fact that you care enough to reflect on this, the fact that you want to feel valued and do meaningful work, says everything about your potential as a leader. You are not a machine designed to produce output without recognition. You're a human being who wants to feel purposeful and appreciated. That's not too much to ask. That's not weakness. That's the foundation of outstanding leadership. Before the next episode, I want you to try this. Think of one difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's giving feedback to a team member. Maybe it's addressing a conflict. Maybe it's having a conversation with your own manager about workload or recognition. Now ask yourself, what would change if I approached this conversation believing that I have value to offer, regardless of whether anyone has told me that recently? Because you do have value to offer. And that conversation you're avoiding, it might be precisely what your team, your workplace, or your career needs. In the next episode, we'll tackle the hard question, what if nothing changes? We'll explore how to conduct a proper gut check review using what I call the gut check wheel, a way to objectively assess whether you're in a challenging phase or a genuinely toxic environment. I'll walk you through how to spot the patterns that matter, not just the bad days, and how to know when you've done everything you reasonably can. We'll also cover the real cost of staying too long in places that don't value you and how to make a courage cue plan that moves you from stuck to strategic. Because sometimes the most difficult conversation you need to have isn't with your team or your boss. It's about what you're willing to accept about yourself. You're not broken. You're becoming more aware. And that awareness, that's the beginning of confident leadership. See you in the next one.